There are very few absolutes when talking about the history of the NBA. These hypothetical questions are valid to ask, fun to debate, but ultimately pointless, because usually, no one can agree on a single answer. What era of the NBA was the best? Which team is the best of all time? Who is the GOAT? That being said, I did say few, not none. And so I say with absolute certainty that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook was the most unstoppable shot in NBA history. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scored 38,387 points over his 20-year career. For 39 years, he held the NBA scoring record, finally broken in 2023 by LeBron James. But if we're simply talking about the act of scoring, as in the ball going through the basket, Kareem still reigns over the league. But first, some quick math. Heading into the 2024-25 season, LeBron has scored a total of 40,474 points on 14,837 made shots. For context, Kareem's 38,387 points was accomplished on 15,837 shots. Kareem still holds the record for most shots made in league history. How? The three-point shot.
Up against it, LeBron drains the three.
Game done changed.
Game the same, just got more fits.
Quick math. Aided by the three, 17% of LeBron's career points have come from three-pointers, which is how he broke the scoring record on less made shots. In comparison, 0.000078% of Kareem's points came from three. You just witnessed the only three Abdul-Jabbar made in his entire career. In fact, the three-point line wasn't introduced until 1979, 10 years into Kareem's career. Now I understand you may have some reservations. First off, even if the three-point line was available to him, it wasn't a part of Kareem's skill set. I mean, it wasn't a part of anyone's skill set during that era. Second, not every Kareem shot was a skyhook. Kareem played before the tracking era, which allows us to track each individual shot a player attempts, the type of shot attempted, even the amount of distance the nearest defender is to him.
We're charting all sorts of plays that would be impossible to chart by hand.
But some internet sleuths went back, watched some Kareem games, and tracked how many times he shot the skyhook, along with its efficiency. In the 1983 playoffs, Kareem made exactly half of his skyhooks.
Jabbar that time told Nixon, he says, "Give me the ball." He rolls for the left-handed hook.
I think you're the greatest, but my dad says you don't work hard enough on defense. That you don't really try, except during the playoffs.
The hell I don't.
For context, since the start of the tracking era, for a wide-open Stephen Curry 3, where the closest defender is 6 feet or more away from him, Curry is only shooting 45.9%. Kareem shot 10.5 skyhooks per game during these playoffs. In comparison, in 2023, Nikola Jokic averaged only 6 post-up possessions per game. Not shots, possessions. Add it all up, and averaging 50% shooting on 142 skyhooks isn't too shabby. Now, I'm not arguing about which scoring path was harder or more impressive. I think comparisons like these are, like I said, ultimately pointless. I just wanted to illustrate the dominance of the skyhook during Kareem's career. Kareem shot the skyhook with high volume and great efficiency. Defenders knew it was coming and still couldn't stop it.
The most dominating force in our league as far as getting the basket anytime you want it.
But wait a minute, didn't Kareem play against plumbers and firemen? It can't be all that impressive. I don't know. Personally, I think a shot used by a 7'2" Hall of Fame center, where the release point is 11 feet in the air, that could be shot over either shoulder, with either hand, and from as far as 12 feet, could be used in any era against any defender. So naturally, since the NBA is a copycat league, and the skyhook being such an unstoppable move, Kareem's influence on today's big men must be prominent. Wait. As of today, the skyhook is basically extinct. Going further, it basically died when Kareem retired in 1989. The most prolific weapon the league has ever seen has been silenced for over 35 years now.
Not live.
Why? First, while the skyhook can be incredibly hard to block, it's also incredibly hard to learn. It's a shot that doesn't rely on athleticism. It relies on finesse and technique, and it takes a lifetime to master. In college, then called Lou Alcindor, Kareem was so dominant, the NCAA banned dunking in 1967, after his freshman year.
I would imagine it was to stop me personally, because no one else on the team was scoring a lot of dunks.
Thus, he focused mainly on developing the skyhook.
It ended up being one of the best things that could ever happen to Kareem, because he then had to learn to do a lot of other things.
By the time he entered the league in 1969, the skyhook was already a potent weapon. He would spend the next 20 years refining his craft. 38,387 points later, his weapon was fully forged. Which brings me to the second reason, optics. In the 90s and 2000s, the NBA was going through a culture shift. Big men still dominated the league. However, the post moves in fashion were ones of power and style, not finesse.
It's very hard to stop, and I don't have to rely on brute force or blinding speed.
Once asked why he doesn't add the skyhook to his arsenal, Shaquille O'Neal, arguably the most dominant big man of all time in the paint, said, "My father made me shoot it all the time, but being a hip-hop kid, I didn't want to do it. We're different. We like to be a lot cooler." Looking at the two most famous proprietors of the hook shot, can you blame him? Kareem himself admitted the skyhook wasn't a macho shot, that it was even going out of style when he started learning it on the blocktops of New York in the 1950s.
They don't want to work with their back to the basket. That's not cool.
And before you think, who cares if it isn't the coolest looking shot? Look at how effective it is. This is a league where Rick Barry, the greatest free throw shooter of all time when he retired in 1980, shot like this. And like the hook shot, it died with him.
I told Rick Barry I'd rather shoot 0% than shoot underhand.
But ultimately, the skyhook led to Kareem becoming the NBA's all-time leading scorer. There must be some merit to its value. Optics can't be the only reason the skyhook doesn't exist anymore, right? During the 90s and 2000s, the NBA culture changed. From the 2010s up until now, the game itself has changed. The three-point revolution happened over 10 years ago now. Everything revolves around the three. Pace and space and drive and kick are the default styles of play. Long gone are the days of not just the skyhook, but post play in general. Watch a guard try to throw a post entry pass today. It can be excruciating, but I don't blame the players or coaches for not putting value into these skills. I don't even think it's a bad thing. In fact, I completely understand why. It's just a natural evolution of basketball. As time goes on, new techniques and styles emerge. Special players come along and redefine what we think is possible on a basketball court. Each generation builds upon what the previous generations did. Kareem's skyhook came from the George Mikan drill.
The first drill that I always learned in shooting the hook shot was originated by George Mikan, and it helped him with his coordination and with positioning his hands for the shot.
No one practiced 26-foot threes until Steph Curry came along. I can't tell you how many times I tried to emulate the Kobe turnaround fadeaway in my driveway, which Kobe emulated from.
Michael fades and fires over Mason and drills it.
Remember at the beginning of the video when I said hypothetical questions are valid to ask and fun to debate, but ultimately pointless? I lied. Most hypothetical questions are fun to debate. You see it everywhere, from talk shows, on social media, to message boards. Who is the GOAT? Let me be clear, I don't have a problem with the question itself. Debating who the best basketball player of all time comes with the territory of liking the sport. What's frustrating is how it's framed and discussed. Watch any of these debates unfold, and soon enough it turns into someone cherry-picking arguments and statistics, mostly based around the era a player played in.
Tell me the guy that he faced that was the equivalent of Kevin Durant.
I think I'm not saying you shouldn't compare a player's individual and team accomplishments, but you should compare them within the context of their era. I'm sure you've seen or heard these questions before. Michael Jordan couldn't shoot threes, so he couldn't play in today's era. LeBron couldn't handle the physicality of the 80s and 90s. Or the player pool Russell and Wilt played against wasn't nearly as deep or talented. Even if these things were true, it doesn't matter. It's a waste of time. Like I said, players build upon what the players before them did. That's how the game of basketball evolves. The rules.
You like to see that called once in a while? Well, you could call it all the time.
The culture, the technology.
Do crowd therapy, cold tub, hot tub, red light.
All of it differs in each era. In the 1970s, they played in Chuck Taylors for f***'s sake. And directly comparing statistics without context, or formulating hypotheticals that are dependent on the era they played in, is not only pointless, but disingenuous.
People are always asking me, could you guys have beaten the Golden State Warriors? We're playing under different rules, so we'll never know that.
Remember that the next time you come across the 1678th argument on the internet about who the GOAT is between LeBron or Jordan. And instead, you should ask yourself why Kareem is rarely mentioned in the first place. Let's quickly go over what Kareem did during his era. 19-time All-Star, 6-time League Most Valuable Player, 6-time NBA champion. At the time of his retirement, Kareem was the NBA's all-time leader in games played, minutes played, points, defensive rebounds, and blocks. He still ranks third all-time, which is impressive considering blocks didn't become an official statistic until 1973, 5 years into Kareem's career. He won at every level, in high school, in college, and in the NBA. And this wasn't some along-for-the-ride type careers. Kareem was undisputedly the best player of his era. He has the statistical resume that rivals LeBron to go along with the longevity, and won with the same proficiency as Jordan. I don't know if he's number one, but again, he should be at least mentioned, right? So why isn't he? Time. Not to get too philosophical, but let's face it, as time moves forward, history and those that made it are lost to it. Their accomplishments, their impact, their significance. And it's natural. I have never seen Kareem play a single game of basketball. He retired before I was even born. And so, to try and capture what it was like to watch him play, I rely on the articles, videos, highlights, interviews, and stories from those that did.
I still can't believe today that people don't work on the hook shot.
And for someone in the future, if they tried to do the same thing with most of the GOAT conversations from today, they'll probably end up not even knowing who Kareem is. Who? For clarity, Kareem is not my GOAT. But I hope that what has happened to Kareem doesn't happen to Jordan in 2040 or LeBron in 2080. Instead, we should be appreciative of the history of the NBA because it informs us just how much the game has evolved. From where we were to where we are.